Hey y'all, come on in. Welcome back. This is going to be part 3 in Mr. Calvert's filigree belt. Today what I want to try to get into with you is yesterday we put the name, we used the letter stamps and put the name on. Today we're going to progress further. We're going to actually do the impression for the pattern that I've chosen to use on here. Now before I started the video, I spent a couple of minutes. I just wanted to get an idea in my head of how I want this thing to actually lay. We'll see, try to find a way where you can see as I explained earlier in another video. I'll get this light down here. And I put my hand behind it, highlight. Now you can see it, I guess, okay. There we go. Now these lines up here on the outside, if you were not going to do a border, these would be the outside of your belt, the edge of your belt. This is for, these things will usually come with 2 different sizes. This is a 1 inch and 1 3/4. 1 3/4 up on top and the 1 inch is on the bottom. Now since I want to do a stitching border around this, like I said, I took a few minutes. Let me get y'all down here now where we can sorry about the jerkiness here. See if we can get y'all down here where we can see what's going on now. There we go. That's better. Judy, would you turn those other 3 lights on for me, honey? I forgot to. Thank you. Get a little bit more light on the subject over here. I'm kind of in a corner in one of the rooms of our house. I darkened some of it. I've already started making the impression. Try and turn it to where the light's not drowning it out. But you can see here on these, as I explained earlier, these patterns are smooth on one side, and then on this other side you can actually feel it with your finger, the impression. And on a wet piece of leather, again, you're going to need to get it wet. From here on, it's going to need to get wet. Until, of course, we get into the staining and coloring part of it. But you can see here, start to see, and it's not very deep, it's just very light. But anyway, to do a filigree, as I explained earlier, I'm going to be cutting all of this background out. All of this in here, all of this background is going to be cut out. And another strip of leather is going to go behind. That's going to be stained in a blue dye for his favorite color. So I wanted to, before I turned the camera on, I wanted to see 2 different things of what I could do here. Now what you can do, if your design is not, if I were to cut out all of this border, this entire design is going to go away. There's nothing touching the outside of this belt that's going to keep it attached like your letters are. See how the letters come all the way out? So they'll stay attached. I'll only cut out a portion at the bottom and the top of them, so they'll stay with the belt. So you can do one or two things here, and this is where the imagination, this is where the fun of it, at least for me, comes in. Is you can take this pointed end of your modeling tool and you can just extend these lines on out on these leaves, on this stem, on these acorns. You can just enlarge the areas that need to come out here to the border. Just extend them out, not really enlarge them, just take the design that's there and just bring it on out. But I got to doing a little bit more idea throwing around in my head. I thought, well, instead of doing that, if I laid this pattern on here, what I can do or another alternative is out here on the where'd my point go? There it is. After I get past the name, then what I can do is I can take my ruler and I can lay across here, and I can come in at an angle and come down. Like so, something like that. Hi, Rosie. You can see part of her anyway. I guess she's going to help today. You can do that, and then what it does, you're going to be thinking, well, you've got this line in there now, and I've already said once it gets in a wet piece of leather, it's there forever. This is true. You can take a modeling spoon and you can come in and get some of that out just by smoothing along there, but you're not going to get all of it out. So if my pattern is not going to come all the way out, what I'm going to do in this case is I am going to come in right along here, and I'm going to actually touch these leaves and these acorns where I need to in order to get it. And then instead of trying to fumble around and erase that line, when I come in later to punch the stitching, I'm going to use that as my guide for the holes. And what that'll do after I get it stitched is in the areas where the line's going to be are going to be a whole lot smaller, a whole lot more narrow. It'll be easier to come in then and get rid of those in between each pocket, and you still achieve what you want to do. So let me show you how I do the patterns. As I said yesterday, once you get a project wet, it's going to be a whole lot more limber, a whole lot more pliable. So when I come in, raise that light up a little bit. But it will try to twist on you a little bit too. So when I come in and I lay my pattern on there, you can use a roller, a little plastic roller that you can get at pretty much any hobby store, I think. But before I do that, I'll take my ruler and all of these pencil marks periodically. I'll periodically mark how wide my border is going to be all the way down. So before I lay that pattern on there, I'll come in with a ruler on top of my pencil marks. Now again, this is just the way I do it. I think I've said before, you could put a 500 leather carvers in the same room, give them the same pattern. You're going to have 500 different ways of coming up with the end result. That's what makes it fun. You make it yours. So what I'm going to do down here is I'll come in, get on my pencil mark. Hope I don't cover you up too bad. And I'll just lightly come down it with my tip. I try not to get off, but I did a little bit. So now when I lay my pattern, if you use the roller, I've found that the leather is going to want to try to walk around with you, and you're going to have areas there where it's not going to be exactly straight. So now you come in, I'm lining up my two lines now. And these patterns, you can line them back up. These are craft aids. If you don't want to use this stuff, if you don't want to use these letters, you can go online. You can find all kinds of variables of them. You can paste and copy them, however you do that. I usually have to get Judy to do that for me because I'm not that computer savvy. But what I'll do is I'll come in with my big modeling spoon. And I'll just come in. I'm not going to do my outside line because I don't need it. I've already used the ruler to take care of that. But you want to come in, you want to do pretty firm. You want to make sure you get your impression. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I'm trying to keep them to a half hour. But then where you stopped, or where you started down here with the acorn, these are repeatable patterns. So what I'm going to do, the end of these leaves, get it back where you can see it. The end of these leaves, not the dotted lines, those just get you into the next, if you want to use them or not. You can stop right here at the end of this leaf. But you'll take this now, down at the end of it, you want to go, I'm going to be moving this around quite a bit today. I don't want to try to do the whole. But here's your acorns again. They're just facing another direction, but then here's the leaf. So I'll come into it just far enough where I can get that leaf impression. Then when you move your pattern down, you just line your leaves back up. Now those acorns are facing another direction now. They're not pointed down. So I'm not going to get on this dotted line or I'll get two impressions. But if you'll come past, and I'm talking to myself here so I can make sure that I stay where I want. When I get down here this time, this is what I was getting into a little bit earlier there. You need to also decide where you want to stop. when you get down towards the end of it, and then down towards the tongue of your belt, or where the buckle's gonna go. When you do these punched blanks, then they come with the snaps and everything already in it. If I were to cut this belt out of one of my hides, it wouldn't have any of this stuff up here. Let me get it in the shot for you. It wouldn't have any of this stuff up here. It'd still be blank just like it is down here. In that event, I could elect to just take my design and go all the way down. Now this, remember, is going to get folded under, so it's not ever going to be seen. But just for the sake of whatever design you're wanting to do. But what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to cut it off. I usually try to allow about the same distance where I start the filigree and end it, so it'll fit within my, not only it'll fit, but I'm not going to need to worry about those snaps. So I know where I'm stopping now, so that's as far as I'm going to go with it. Oops, I missed a little bit in the middle there. And that's the beauty of these. If you get a little bit too light in some areas, I didn't miss it, I just didn't imprint it hard enough. Where it would go in. Get it lined back up here where I can get that done. Where was it? Right there. Now here's my dotted line again, down at the other end, so I'm not going to get into it. Or actually I do need to, because I want to use it. I need to wet that a little bit more. That's not doing what I want. Getting dry on me again. Sorry, Rosie. We use a spray bottle to keep them off of the kitchen counter and their dining room table, so she's very aware of what that sound is. I think what I'll do is just get the pattern set in that one end only, because I really wanted to start showing you some of the using the swivel knife and go over some of that with you. And then if I tried to film the whole thing, then the video would be a couple hours long, but I'll do enough to where you can get the idea, and then I'll show you. I won't tool any of it because I want to show you what those things, what the different tools will do. Alright, now we'll wet again. Let's put it back in. A little bit light on here, so I'll come back up and lay that back in. It got a little dry on me is what happened. But anyway, if you get something offline that you like really well, then what you can do, put it into a Word document or something like that, and then size it. But I've made several things. Company logos and put in wallets, things of that nature. Now let's see, where do my acorns, where did they go that are facing up? There's those. I need to put these right here now. Actually, that's not going to match what I had. I don't get in a hurry with this stuff. What didn't take earlier? Right here where these acorns are. You can use part or all of one of these. Or if you get something out of a book, I try to get it detailed enough to where if it's detailed enough where I can get a pattern off of it, then I'm in pretty good shape. And some of it's a little bit light, and you can come in with your point then. I've done this before too. You can lay your pattern back over it. And you can come in then. And just kind of lay it over how you want. That's going to come up and curl back in. So where is that part? And come back in then. And these patterns are not going to be perfect. They'll have their little hiccups and stuff too. When they make them, one part of it may not imprint as much. But if you get something offline and you're able to shrink it down small enough to use for a pattern, and order some of this tracing film. One side of it you can actually use a pencil and put on there, and the other side is smooth. You take your pencil, lay it over it. The thing you have to remember though is you're going to have to invert your design. So if I'm using a picture and it's going to be facing me like this, in order to do your drawing, you're going to have to turn the tracing film over when you trace it onto the leather. So you just have to get that in your head, because you're going to be transferring those pencil marks then into your leather. And it's not that big of a deal if it's wet and you're still going to use a pencil. Then these are the lines that are actually going to be where your swivel knife will go. You're going to be cutting these. So that's not gonna, what I'm referring to when using a pencil is areas, using a pencil like areas that are going to be seen at a later date. Now then, let me show you what I'm talking about as far as what I'm wanting to do now with my border. Anyway, see if you can, yeah, you can make out where my pattern is now. So what I'm going to do is I'll use my ruler again now, and I'm going to lay it in. And I'll start down here at the tip of that acorn. Will be good. I'm going to come in now. With the tip of it. I'm going to put me a second line. Down to about the tip of that acorn. Now when I hold it up, now when I cut this out, there's going to be multiple points here that are going to be now attached to the border. And if it doesn't quite come out to the border, then just extend your pattern out. All you need to do. And then what I'll do, where I want it to end down here, get my hand out of the way. And these do not have to be, don't think these have to be the same curve. What your pattern has in it, for instance, I'm just going to terminate it right here at the tip of that little leaf. And I'll do a sweep on that leaf and bring it out. And then this will be solid now from here all the way down. And down here where the name is, or where the name starts, I don't know how well, I'm trying to keep this where y'all can see it, understand what I'm doing. You really can't make out that acorn that clearly, but I'm going to stop it right here at the end of it on this end, and then I'm going to stop it at the tip. And then what I'm going to do is I'll just curve it back up and have it rejoin. Let's just kind of follow where that C is going. Everything in here is going to get tooled, and all of this background to make the filigree is going to be cut out. And that's pretty much it. That's how I lay out a pattern. Now, if they didn't want a filigree belt, then I would just use that one border that your pattern puts in, because I'm not going to be cutting out any of the background. I'm going to be using a shading tool, and I'll demonstrate one of those. Since I am going to be cutting that out, I can still demonstrate it. And get that. So let's give me just a second. I'll be right back, and we'll break out the swivel knife. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Something else I keep forgetting to add is I'm expecting what I use to seal my projects with. I'm expecting some super sheen is what it's called. But before you start a project, you want to, bless you, before you start a project, you want to make sure you got everything you need. Because I may get to a certain point of this one just to realize I can't go any further. Not till I get some more supplies. All right, swivel knives, swivel knives. And a basic starter set. These will come with the kits. Get these down here now. I have several different kinds. Got an angle blade on one. And a flat blade on the other. You see the angle as opposed to the straight one. When I'm doing a border like on a belt or a long stretch or a long straight line, I like using this one because for me it just helps. It's just smoother. A little bit easier for me to control the a little bit easier for me to actually control the line. But for the patterns and stuff, just to give you an idea of what you can do, let me get some of this stuff out of the way. I'll show you something right here. I'll move you a little bit. That cat right there came from 4 different patterns that I overlaid on each other. Got some of it out of magazines. I was just thumbing through, got the idea. Well, that's on a full side of leather. But that's what you can do. The clock came from a different, I don't know, book, wherever I found it. The cat came from another. But I got all of them clear enough where I could see them, detailed enough to where I could get a pattern off of them. But that cat took me about 2.5 years to do it. So your patterns don't have to come from one single source. Don't think you have to do that. I'll try to get you guys in a little bit closer because I'm going to have to get you a little bit detailed on some of this. Zoom you in some. I want you to try to see what I'm fixing to demonstrate with the swivel knife. Let me get it a little bit wet again. I'm not going to do much on this time of wetting it because I don't need that much more. But what I want to demonstrate is, let's see if I can get this zoomed in enough to where you can see it. You're going to have a connecting line. Where'd my pencil go in the camera? Here we are. See if I can get it enough. But these lines throughout your pattern are going to connect to other cuts. Like right here where it comes into another leaf. Do not cut into those other lines. And I'll demonstrate what I'm talking about. I'm not going to try to demonstrate it on here because I won't be able to show you that well. So let me use this scrap piece of, or not scrap, what he put the jeweler's rouge on. But that jeweler's rouge serves two different purposes. It'll coat the blade a little bit, but then it also helps keep the edge on it. That'll come back into play a little bit later. But what I want to demonstrate with a knife is, where is it? Okay, there's the edge of it. And these are swivel knives because you use this part down here to turn it. That's what allows you to make your turns and your pattern without having to lift the blade out and turn it. But you can come in here. Now this leather's dry, so it's not going to do that well. And you just make a curve with it. Like that. You just twist it here. Your downforce comes from this finger here, pushing down on the top of the handle. Now if I've got another part of the design that's going to be coming into this line, you see it right there, tip of my thumb. If I've got something else coming into it, then I'm not going to bring it all the way into that line. Do not connect those two. Leave it back a little bit. I'm going to highlight it now with my pencil so it's easier for you to see. But you can see right here at the tip of my thumb where I left a little bit of spacing. If you cut this line into this one, then where those join, these edges here, where those join right here, those are going to be cut now. And just like anything that gets cut, it's going to want to try to curl up on you as time goes along. Those fibers inside are going to start to separate, and it's going to want to start to pull up on you. But then too, the other reason for it is when you start tooling your design, tell you what. It's just time to get you guys up on the table where we can start working. And that modeling, or my tooling block, chunk of marble weighs about as much as I do, I think. But it is heavy. Get it out here now. All right, so Got zoomed in a little bit more here. I want you to be able to see. Again, this piece of leather is dry, so it's not going to show up as well as it would on there. I'm going to take my beveler, little beveler. I'll go over that in the tools a little bit later. I'll need a smaller one. There it is. And there's not any real way I can do this. See if I can show you with my right hand. I'm right-handed, so forgive me. But the edge of that tool, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to follow that line all the way around, from one line to the next. Now let's say this part of it here was going to be background. This is going to be a leaf, something of that nature. And I'm just going to do that one area, not the whole thing. It'll show up a lot better on a wet piece of leather, but you see how it's kind of indented right there now? So to join those two, again, if this part over here was going to be background, I'm going to tool it with a different tool, or I'm going to cut it out in the instance of this belt right here. But I want to highlight that leaf. Then I'm going to come right up there to the end of that cut. And then I'll use that beveling tool and come out to the other line. And what that does, it still leaves the impression all the way up here to that other line, but it's not cut through. This part right here is still part of this leather here and part of this leather here. It's not going to want to pull up or anything like that. It's just simply mashed down, if you want to say that, if you want to call it like that. So I'm going to probably cut this one off here, and I'll get it cut with a swivel knife. I've showed you how to use those angle blades. I'll use them if I'm working in a tighter area. Let's say I need to make just a small circle. This is hard to do in this dry leather. But you see, I didn't lift the blade up at all. I just simply turned it. I like these because only the very, very tip of that blade is actually cutting the leather. But the angle that it's on, the rest of this blade is completely out of it. It's not going to cut it. It's not going to touch it, so it won't be able to cut it. But I use these for my smaller areas. I'm probably going to use this one more on this particular belt because the designs are not that big. So that's what I'm going to do on here. If I showed cutting all of this, then the video is going to be probably about 2 hours long. I'm going to try to keep them around a half hour. So I'll I'll do the next one after I get my pattern cut and everything everything ready to tool. And then in the next video there we'll go through the different tools, and I'll show you each time I use one of them. In my earlier videos I went through some of the basic tools that come in the starter kits there from Tandy, and showed you how to use them and stuff like that. But I'll bring before I actually start tooling this, because there's some things that you're going to need to pay. You're going to need to learn. You're going to need to be aware of as you're tooling it. So let me cut this one off here, and I'll get it cut and ready to go. And then we'll come back when it's time to actually start using the tools. But there's your swivel knives and their operation. So with that, Judy and I like to end videos with "Don't be mean." Before you say or do something to someone else, ask yourself, if you're not willing to do it to Jesus, then let's not do it to each other. And with that, we'll see you on the next one, and we'll get a little bit further into this. Alrighty, until next time.